This is a pretty nerve-wracking job. Not applying this tape, but my next job now is some kind of point of no return. If I do any mistake now, I will have to live with it. And I don't want to do that. You have probably heard about the saying, measure twice, cut once. I will probably measure hundreds of times. Because what I'm about to do now is to figure out exactly where I'm gonna put all of the drawers. I want it the same in all my sections here. I'm gonna build 56 drawers. So if I make a bad decision now, well, then that's gonna be really bad. My idea is to have approximately 1 centimeters of clearance between each row. I will have a total of 7 rows of drawers. The bottom one will be 25 centimeters, next one 20, next one 15, and then smaller and smaller, and the topmost 12 centimeters. At least that's the plan so far. I have done a bit of planning, and I've made a 3D model of the room and all the furniture as I think I want it. The 3D model is not with millimeters precision. There are some centimeters plus minus, but I think I've been quite lucky this time because all the measurements, they line up pretty nice. So that's a good thing. And another good thing, I have now brought along the drawer slides that I have bought. And the first 3 of them, the topmost, they are perfect. This is the 30 centimeter drawer slides and it fits perfectly. If I turn it backside out, you can see the holes here line up nicely. The next drawer slide is 40, fits perfectly as well. 50 goes nicely, exactly here. But that was also when the luck ran out, because the next drawer is 60. Not sure if you can see, it does not reach to this beam. So for this one I need to have some kind of support here to hold this one. And the same for the next one, 80 centimeters goes here, barely reach back, but I need some support here as well. And the same for the 2 bottom ones that are 1 meter. One goes here. Very unfortunate, it almost reaches back to the stand over there, but I need to add an extra stand here at the end, at the inner part, and one somewhere in the middle. Yeah, so, and for each section. So if you're ever gonna build something like this, I would really recommend to have solid walls, because then I could screw on the drawer slides wherever I wanted. But then again, that's also a lot of job to put in something in between here. So I will probably just buy a lot of 2x4 and put on several stands here so I can connect the drawer slides. But extending the framework upstairs, it's not my biggest challenge. This is my biggest challenge. Well, not exactly this one. These are just test drawers I built in my last episode to figure out the most optimal way to build drawers. I tested a simple solution and a complex solution. And of course, I'm going for the complex solution. It's not that complex, it's just that compared to the simple one, I have to cut an extra groove on all the side pieces. And on the bottom piece, I will also cut a cutout on the corners so it fits into the groove. So the bottom plate is resting into the groove of the sides. It's a stronger variant, but a bit more time consuming to build. And I think that is also the biggest challenge in this project, and that is to build these 56 drawers. I made the first one, or I haven't even made it. I have just cut out the pieces, and it took several hours. What I figured out was that with my equipment, my table saw and the plywood I have bought, it's not that precise, any of it. So the grooves didn't get the proper depth all the way, especially if the plywood is a bit curved. I need to press it down to the saw blade to make the cut deep enough. So I actually ended up having to go over with my router, just a second pass over all the grooves to make them precise. So it's a bit time consuming to build the drawers. I hope it will speed up the process as I get more experience. I've now written down all the sheet codes for making them, all the dimensions. Hopefully it doesn't take weeks, but cutting out the first drawer took 4 hours. Multiply that with the 56 drawers. I don't even want to know the answer to that. Building the drawers were not complicated at all. So that's good news. Didn't take long to build them. But what's not as good news is making this framework. That took me quite a lot longer time than I thought. And you can see some strange shapes here. What I ended up doing was to replicate this frame setup down on the garage floor. Then I lay down all the drawer slides and tried to figure out the best way of setting it up. And I ended up using 2x2 instead of 2x4. Bit more lightweight and rather have several stands, or is it called batten? I'm not sure. So what I've done now is tried my best to figure out where those need to go to line up with the holes on the drawer slides. Unfortunately, the drawer slides have a different offset to the holes for the different sizes. So some of them don't fit, so that's when I added this extra piece here, because the holes didn't match up. Hopefully now I have a plan, but I'm not sure if it really will work out. The plan is now to start with the inner battens first. Makes it easiest to screw them on, I would think. When doing a project for the first time, there is a good chance that something will go wrong. Let me share some tips with you, what I have done to mitigate the risks in this project. I have made all these measurements. As I said, I don't measure twice, I measure hundreds of times. So just measure a lot of times over and over again and double check and triple check. That is one of the most important tasks, I think, when doing DIY projects that we've never done before. But mistakes will be done. Go for screws instead of nails, so it's possible to undo the things you do. And I have already made markings here, so I know where this is supposed to go. And one tip, you can never have enough clamps. and use an extension bit to get better access. I'm very often asking myself when I'm doing these kind of DIY projects that I haven't done before, is this the best way of doing it? And I do think that's a healthy question to ask. And I recommend you to do the same. If you do something that is going to take some time to finish up, ask yourself, is this the best way to do it? Do some research, ask around, search on the internet. Maybe you should have done it differently. Like in this project, should I have put up a solid wall here instead of all these battens? It would have made the build much more rigid, and it would have been much easier to attach the drawer slides if this was a solid wall made of OBS or plywood, but it would have made the build a bit more complex. I wouldn't have added them outside of this stud. I would have to insert it because I'm going to use the full width here. It would have been much more heavy and much more expensive. So all in all, I think this is the right solution for me. And yeah, by the way, I think this is called studs, not batten. I think you better correct me if I'm wrong. I've been calling these for stands, just they are standing there. But maybe studs are the right. So now I have set up all the studs on both sides here, ready to the first section of drawers, except I made one mistake. Can you see it? If you paid attention to the beginning of this video, I told you something about the third row. It was long enough to reach back to this rafter beam, and it does. But somehow when I was laying on my garage floor doing all the calculation, I thought maybe I didn't. And yeah, this is a total unnecessary thing. And then it's time to put on the drawer slides, like this. The rule of thumb is to put on the drawer slides approximately 1/3 up on the sides, at least the side-mounted ones. You also get drawer slides that lays underneath the edge here, at least not above the middle. Why? I'm not sure. It's just what I've heard. I think maybe one of the reasons is that at least this big box here, it has some flex to it, you can see. And I haven't added glue on the sides here. I only have glued the front piece, so I don't pull off the front when I'm pulling out the drawer. And I skipped adding glue here on the sides. Saved me a lot of glue. But then, of course, worst case scenario here is that this is squeezed out. Only half a centimeter, 5 millimeters, the depth here of the groove. So having the drawer slides at the bottom here, make sure that the drawer is squeezed in between of the frame and it has nowhere to go. I think maybe that's a plausible reason for doing it. Maybe there's another reason, maybe you know it. Let me know. So then it's pretty much just putting on this. So let's say 8. Yeah, I think 8 centimeters looks like a nice position. The drawer sliders are bought from JLC MC, and they have sponsored part of this build series. Not this episode though, but I want to give them a shout out anyway. So if you want to buy something from them, you can find a link in the description. You will get some discount, and you will also be supporting me and my channel. They have a lot of cool mechanical and mechatronic components, so please check them out.
The specification suggests to use M5 bolts, so that is what I have bought. And since I'm only using 12mm plywood, I will not be using wooden screws. It doesn't feel very secure to fasten them. My favorite hardware store didn't have any washers on storage for M5 bolts, so I 3D printed my own. And that gave me the idea that I could also make some M cap, some cover over the nut. So I both saved some money and ended up with a better solution. Then it's the last job before I can test the first drawer. That is to put on the drawer slides here into my frame. I've put back the trolley now. The important task is, of course, to find the correct height for the drawer slides. On the drawer, I put it 8 centimeters above the bottom. I want 1 centimeter of gap. That means I need to set up the drawer slides 9 centimeters above this trolley. And I have made some measurements. So here is where the center of the drawer slide is gonna go. In addition to that, I also need to make sure that the drawer slides ends exactly 25 millimeters from the front part here. So there is some things to be aware of here. I only have 2 hands, unfortunately, but luckily I do have a 3D printer. So I have 3D printed some brackets. These are made with some markings to where the center line goes and with the correct distances. When I think of it, it would have been much better to 3D print this in white plastic. I thought this orange color looked cool, but it's a bit difficult to see the laser since that is red. The one at the rear is a bit differently. I think it's there. All right, and then it should be now just to put on this drawer slide and align it to the front of this. It is now possible to even move it, and it should be on the exact correct location. I will be using screws made for wood this time. I replaced my clamp, by the way. This one is stronger. I must say, I'm surprised. I thought this brand was a bit more pro Bahco than Meek Tools. I think they're both Swedish brands. And this one is a bit cheaper. This is not very expensive either, but this is absolutely much stronger compared to this too. Okay, anyway, I have now installed the drawer slides on each side, and maybe you notice this one. I have a bit of a surprise for you. This garage is quite crooked. When I built it 25 years ago, I didn't build it with the intention to be a furniture. So there are some millimeters deviation, like the floor is tilting downwards over 1 centimeter from this end to this. And yeah, nothing is perfectly aligned. So I have 3D printed a lot of these spacers. I can put these in between where there are some gaps. And I had to put in a 2.5 millimeters. I 3D printed this in different sizes and made them so they fit perfectly in behind this. I will use these spacers to align, do the final adjustments. And that has been also one of the reasons why this build takes forever. Nothing is perfect here when it comes to the framework. Yeah, so I need to do small tweaks all the way. But it's time now to test this. I have only attached these drawers now with 2 screws first, just to see if it works at all. This is the first time I'm testing it. So this first drawer here is 1.20 m, so it's deeper than the drawer slides. So I'll never be able to pull it fully out. But I knew that. I just wanted to have some drawers over 1 meter. Okay, so this should go there. Okay, this was a bit low. Oh, is it a bit tight? Okay, maybe if I pull them out, they're easier. Okay. I was afraid I've made it too tight. Okay, so now I can pull this out. Aha, that's a good sound. Okay, first conclusion. I think they are a bit tight. I'll remove this spacer, see if that helps. I'm putting in a 1mm spacer here instead. Better check that the trolley fits underneath. Yes. I know it. The trolley is a bit wider than the drawer. You can see here, it's because it's at the angle. I want to cut it here, I think. So maybe, let's see. But it works, that's nice, but I can see it's quite a precise maneuver. The distance between here needs to be pretty spot on. Now it goes a lot better, but it's still, I feel a bit tight. Maybe it should be even more play here. No, I think it's good. Feels firm and nice. This is great news. So the first drawer is finally made and it's working. The bad news though is I have 55 more to build. So this is 1.8% of the project when it comes to building the drawers are done. The good news though is that now I have only 98% remaining.